All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another NFL draft recap. Little known fact to a lot of the listeners out there or viewers that might be chiming in that this is actually the sixth draft that Bryan and Dave and I have spent together. And I know that they probably didn't remember that. I remember these type of things. So with that being said, Bryan, welcome to the show.
Nobody is as Hallmarkian and remembers special events like Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman. So thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you.
I welcome Dave Schofield.
People are like, why are they laughing so hard? They've got to be. But Jeff, that was fantastic. I'm exhausted. This is a very comfortable chair, and it's no longer comfortable for me. I've spent a lot of time in this chair in the last 3 days.
Yeah, for those that are listening, right before we hit record, Bryan decided to bestow his knowledge on us that this was the sixth draft for us together. And I said, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. So that's why I started the show that way. And this has been a wild and crazy draft. Day 3 is in the books for the Pittsburgh Steelers, having 1 pick in the 4th round, 2 picks in the 6th round, and then that's it. They're done. And Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan have already had their post-draft press conference, so I don't think they're moving into the 7th round, but we will be having some undrafted free agents here shortly. Make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com for that and for more. Now, let's talk about the picks today. 4th round selection. The Steelers go back to the offensive line, and they take McCormick. That's right, McCormick. It is Mason McCormick from South Dakota with their 4th round pick. Bryan, what was your take?
Well, I really think that this is a spicy pick and good seasoning with Mr. McCormick. And if you don't get that, you're not from Maryland and don't realize that I'm talking about spices.
Yeah, McCormick spices for sure. Old Bay. All right, very good. Dave Schofield, what is your take on the McCormick selection?
Yeah, I just found it hilarious when we were in the live stream that we're trying to figure out positions that the Steelers won't draft. And I came up with tight end. Bryan came up with running back. And Jeremy Betts went with guard. And the very next pick, several minutes later, the Steelers take a guard, which I thought was pretty funny. I won't get over that one. But hey.
And Dave, the most intelligent draft-wise of all of us is Jeremy Betts.
Yeah, that's what makes it so funny. So I'm not going to complain when the Steelers continue to add to the trenches. And they did that again today with half their picks going there. So this one is one that you're reaching day 3. So it's not necessarily that you're looking for guys that you're banking on plugging in to be the guys this year. That these aren't players that you expect to be starters by the end of the season of their rookie year, like you do with ones in the 1st and 2nd and potentially 3rd round.
Yeah.
So these are guys that you could say, hey, if they don't work out anything with James Daniels, let's see what McCormick's looking like as an interior offensive lineman. Apparently he's a great puller. That's one of his biggest strengths. So, hey, if they like him, I like him. I like the position.
Position flexibility is also an important piece of the puzzle here. He can play all the interior positions, has played center at times, but he is a guard. He kind of reminds me of his rookie season will probably be the role of he's just depth on the interior. If someone goes down, now you have 2 capable guards, hopefully with Nate Herbig still around. He has center experience as well. You now have McCormick. He also has that experience. If he develops and he makes the roster, the Steelers have some pretty good interior line depth. Bryan, what do you want to say?
You know, this also shuts some people up about, well, Troy Fautanu would be a better guard. You know, I know Mike Tomlin shut people up the other day and said, no, he's a tackle. And I get it, but people weren't ready to believe that yet. So now that you bring another guard in, it gives you it gives you some safety, like Dave just said, like Roy Countryman said on our live stream. It helps you out in case somebody does leave. And I would think that you're going to keep one of those guards that you had for 3-year deals on, say Amalu, who's in the 2nd year of his deal with the Steelers. And then, of course, Daniels. So if one of those do go, you're going to have one left, but then you have somebody that can get some, I don't want to use seasoning, but he can get some seasoning.
Nice. Another McCormick play.
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
I want to say one
Go
more
ahead,
thing.
Dave.
I'm
Sure.
just so grateful that we cover the best franchise in professional sports. Because if not, you could be looking at other teams like that putrid purple team that's just east of here, that's in the AFC North. They still have 3 draft picks left.
Who the Ravens still have 3 picks?
Yeah, they still have 3 picks left coming.
Yeah, but you know what? It's something where, like you said, Dave, build the trenches. Build the
Yes.
trenches. I mean, first round pick, tackle, second round pick, center, third round pick, receiver. But then, they continue that trend, fourth round, and they also continue that trend in the sixth round when, with the first of their 2 sixth-round picks, the Steelers take Logan Lee out of Iowa. And on the live stream, I thought it was very interesting how I did not do this. I did not create this graphic, but someone put the raw athletic scores of Logan Lee and Brett Kiesel when he was entering the NFL next to each other. And Logan Lee was actually, from an athletic perspective, better than Brett Kiesel. We all love Brett Kiesel. Brett Kiesel was a 7th-round pick from BYU that turned into a phenomenal player. He's like a local legend. So before you close the book on Lee, before he even steps foot on the field, keep that in the back of your mind. But Bryan, what was your take on them going defensive line in 6th round?
I love them going defensive line. We were looking at Mekhi Wingo. We were looking at some names like that. I just like the concept. We know that Andy Weidel likes to go ahead and bring those guys on both sides of the line and have those guys in here. This guy is more of a defensive end, they're saying, than he is a defensive tackle. He's a 3-4 guy. Already looks good in black and gold, especially the throwbacks, because that's what Iowa wears. I just like the fact that I feel so much better because I don't know anything about Logan Lee. But then I start seeing some things pop in. I see in our Slack channel from Steel Curtain Network, Bill Dundas just absolutely loved what he saw. He didn't know anything about him until he started watching film, and he was thrilled with everything that he was seeing as well. So this is just one of those things you wait and you see and you develop. They have guys that are getting paid to scout these players. It's not our job to find out who they are, but it's our job to find out who they are now. So
Right.
that's all you need to know about that pick. I think it's great because they're really thinking about replenishing that defensive line as well as the offensive line. And we all know that it all starts in the trenches.
Absolutely. Dave, what was your take on Lee as a 6th-round draft pick?
All right. Well, first of all, I like that you stipulate as a 6th-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Because I said it before, I'll say it again. This is where you get into, will these guys make the team when you're getting to that point of the draft? But for me, for Logan Lee, it's very clear cut of what he can do to make the team as a defensive lineman. All right. You've got DeMarvin Leal for now. You've got Isaiah Loudermilk. You go out there and you outperform those guys, you're in the rotation.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's plain as day, clear as can be what his path is to playing time. Those are the guys you need to outperform. They've been around a while, but you go step in there and you do your thing and can do that. That's great. I like building it. Jeff, you said they've got to go defensive tackle at some point. They're getting old. That's just because Cam Hayward is the best and Cam Hayward is up there. So, and we know this. Love Keanu Benton, ready for him to have a big second season, hopefully. Jeff was a little bit disappointed. I think a lot of fans were with Larry Ogunjobi. It's not that he had a terrible year. He just didn't have a year worthy of his contract. But then, and you still got Montravius Adams and other players there to rotate in. So Logan Lee, that's a position where you could be a late round draft pick and you can actually get some playing time if you can prove your worth. So I like it. It gives more competition to that group for sure.
Yeah, I think the more names, more faces get in there, let's see what they can do. If a 6th-round draft pick doesn't make the team, it's not the end of the world. You know, I mean, so let's create competition. May the best man win. I want to see a good young defensive line. I'd love to see someone like him carve out a role for himself. Everything that you read, he's pretty much a traditional 3-4 defensive lineman. think about Brett Kiesel, think about Aaron Smith. Nope, not as good as Aaron Smith probably, but still just in terms of that ilk, that's the style of play that he is going to bring. That is Mr. Lee, Logan Lee. And then in the sixth round draft pick, the Steelers, their final pick of the draft, they took defensive back Ryan Watts out of Texas. Now, Ryan Watts, I labeled him as a defensive back. He was a corner for Texas, but a lot of people are saying might not be a corner in the NFL, might be more of a safety. Bryan, what was your take on this pick?
Exactly. You know, when you look at him and his measurables as a safety and not as a corner, then you feel so much better with this pick. I like it. They know what they're doing. It seems like this is a guy that could be a special teams guy and work his way in. And we've seen guys that specialize in special teams. We talked about this yesterday on this show. When we've seen what happens with a guy like Miles Killebrew. So, you know, you have a chance to make the roster but in these late rounds by playing hard. There you go, Dave. Playing hard on special teams and making a name. But yeah, I like this pick so much more because it's not a corner. But the beautiful thing about it is you have a guy that knows how to play corner. And instead of going out and panicking, if you happen to have some injuries and you're just filling in with, like they did this at safety last year, but if the safety situation where they're just taking Eric Rowe off the street and anybody else and trying to fill these guys in, if this happens at corner, then you have a guy with corner experience that played in the Big 12 at corner. You know, I'll take it. Besides somebody else that isn't on the roster and you're just bringing them in. So it's a good pick.
Okay. Dave, what was your take?
Well, he was at Ohio State, right? And then transferred to Texas.
Yes.
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 Making sure, I hope so, because I said that on the Breaking News podcast. Also, once again, 6th-round draft pick. What's your path to the roster? You know where his path to the roster is, in my opinion? Steelers don't have their gunners back from last year.
Interesting.
On special teams. So, and that's one of the things that I was reading about his strengths. Hey, he's a player you bring in at this point. He can contribute right away on special teams. If that, I mean, my goodness, if that's what he can do, then he's got a path to the 53 if he shows worthy to do it. And that's the thing you have to ask. Whenever you draft a player, so many people wanted to. Prime example was the Chris Oladokun pick 2 years ago. They're like, what's his path to the 53-man roster? He didn't really have one, right? You know? So, I mean, so that was interesting. So that's what I like about these 6th-round draft picks is that you can say that there's a path there. Now, was he the best corner that they could have got there? I don't know about these guys. I just know a couple local names were out there from Penn State and Pitt. I don't know if he's better or worse or whatever with those. But when I looked at it, that was the first thing I saw when I went to do the Breaking News podcast is when I looked it up and said, hey, if they're talking about special teams, there's your way to contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have a defensive back kind of rounds it out to the skill position players. If you want to defer to the grunts and the lines, you had the Wilson twins on day 2. And then you obviously had the selection of, oh my gosh, just forgot his name. Ryan Watts. There you go. This is the only skill position. So I think a lot of people that might not know about the Steelers team needs, and they might not know about some of these draft picks and these selections. They did what a lot of us, myself included, Dave, I've heard you allude to it, Bryan, the same. This draft, they said, we have to just fortify the trenches. And whether that's depth, like Lee in the 6th round, or whether that's your 1st and 2nd round picks being on the offensive line, that's what they felt they needed. I agreed with that. I thought this was a great draft in and of itself. I said it on the live stream today. If they didn't have any picks today, I still would be happy with the draft. Yeah. And yet I do like the guard selection of McCormick. I give this draft an A. Yes, that's a knee-jerk A. Yes, we don't know A. It's going to take a couple years A, but I'm giving it an A. Bryan, what about you? What's your grade?
Yeah, I have to give it an A as well because anything in this on this 3rd day of the draft, it could go any way. You're probably more likely to go ahead and get somebody that surprises you, even if it's a 4th round pick, than somebody that busts out. So I would just say that I like this, but the real draft was on Thursday and Friday. And this is just to round out and see what kind of diamonds in the rough that you can get. So I am completely pleased with this. And one more thing, trade all your 7th round picks away, please. This is awesome.
Can eat dinner at a normal time, right?
Yeah. Dave, what's your knee-jerk grade?
Knee-jerk. I love that you're calling it knee-jerk grade. Because I really like this draft. I'm going with a solid A because there was nothing they could really do today to mess that up, in my opinion. But okay. I care more about that being an A 2 years from now than I do right now. Right. I would said that before, and that's really going to be the key. So you're giving your grade on did they pick who and what positions that they should have picked. And people that were more of a consensus, everybody liked this kind of person, and that's what makes these draft grades better. But I like what they did. I really like that they got their center in round 2. I really like that they had so many picks in the trenches. And speaking of which, I want to throw this out there. They took Mason McCormick. What pick number was that? That was 119, correct?
Something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
So a 4th round lineman, pick 119. We're like, oh, what are the Steelers? Oh, maybe he'll work. Oh, he'll be depth or something. They're good at guard. Who knows if he'll ever really play? Just remember, their last 4th round offensive line that they took was Dan Moore Jr. at pick 128 in 2021, and Kevin Dotson at pick 135 in 2020. Both of those guys were 4th round picks, picked later in the draft than McCormick. So, and both of them had significant starts for the Steelers over the course of their rookie deal. So exactly how things work out with McCormick, we'll just have to see. But it's not like, we don't know if he sees the field. I'm looking forward to see if he's a guy that can develop and be a starter here sooner than later.
All right, Bryan, real quick, out of the 7 players selected, was one your favorite? Who was your favorite pick of the draft?
I have 2, and I have to say 2 because here's a reason. Fautanu is my favorite because that guy is a stud, and the first round pick really should be everybody's favorite. So you can cancel him out, but yeah, I gotta love that number 1 pick because they feel like they celebrated when they picked him up. They feel like they got a steal at number 20 with him, but I talked all along about how much I'm in love with Peyton Wilson. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm alone in that either. So I've been listening to other shows. I remember listening to Roy Countryman on the Steel City Insider and hearing about Peyton Wilson there. I remember hearing him on a different broadcast, not Roy, but hearing about Peyton Wilson on another broadcast. He could be something special if he stays healthy, but he stayed healthy for the last 2 years. But this guy could have been a number 1 pick, and he could have been a top 10 pick if there weren't concerns. Those concerns remain, and I get it. But wow, I love him at 3B.
All right, Dave, what about you? Favorite draft pick or picks, I guess, since Bryan able to.
Well, Bryan's right because you're saying this favorite picks. Because if you're talking favorite player, then it's hard not to just go with the first round pick because that's someone that you're expecting most. But to me, my favorite pick, and I know I'm not alone here because we have Shannon White on staff, my favorite pick that solidified this draft was getting Zach Frazier in the 2nd round. That instantly turned, anyone who had a concern, should they have taken Graham Barton in the 1st round? They such a big need. Boom, you got the center right there. To me, that pick is what solidified everything. When we did our mock draft on the Scobro show, I'm sorry I keep talking about it, we traded back thinking we would still take a center. Ended up taking Cooper DeJean, who that was drafted him too soon compared to where he really went. And I already said I hated the draft. Then in that one, we somehow got Frazier at 51. I said, okay, now I love the draft again. And that's why I love this draft. Being able to get that player in that spot, that was the one that they needed the most, in my opinion. And therefore, that's my favorite pick. And it just made everything else so much better because you got, in my opinion, your biggest glaring need and had it locked in, and you didn't have to use your very first pick to do so.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to argue. I mean, you could talk yourself to a bunch. Peyton Wilson is like what Bryan said. And then when I saw the quote of what he said at Cam's party, like the draft party, where he's like, look, I'm going to rip someone's head off. Like, you want to be beloved by the Steelers fan base, say crap like that. Like, just do it publicly. Just say, I'm out there to just go and rip I'm playing with my hair on fire. That's what you're saying. That's awesome. Like, I love that. I will say, though, the pick that I am looking forward to seeing and how he fits is, we could all talk about, Fautanu is awesome and wasn't supposed to be there at 20, blah, blah, blah. But I'll go with a player no one's talked about. I like them all, but I like Roman Wilson too. He's a guy that I think that a lot of people are sleeping on and they're wondering how he's going to fit. I trust people like Coach KT Smith. And when he says this guy has a ton of potential in terms of his versatility, how they can use him in the backfield, in motion, all this stuff, I like it. And he's a guy that's already in Pittsburgh. And I think the sooner they get them in front of the fans, the better they feel that this means something. It's not, I don't know, maybe it's, I don't think every fan base is like this. I really don't. But the Steelers fan base is very special. And I guess this is a great time. I said this on the live stream. I'll say it here to everyone that's consumed our content over the weekend, whether you watched 5 minutes, 5 hours of live stream content during day 1, 2, or 3, whether you listen to our podcast on the audio platforms or not, we thank you very much. We do this for you. Like, it's our job, yes, but we do it for the fans because we know y'all are going to expect it. Y'all are going to enjoy it. So we're going to provide that content for you. I do want to say this before I throw it to Bryan and get his final thoughts. If you are someone that just found us in any way, shape, or form, unless it's in the podcast platform, because that's where we want you to go, check out our podcast platform so you can hear our audio-only shows like Bryan's Bad Language, Dave's Stat Geek, My Let's Ride podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, search Steelers, you'll find the Steel Curtain Network. Give us a 5-star on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. All right, man, that's a wrap for me. But Bryan, go ahead and do your final thoughts.
Final thoughts are simple. Last year at this time in the 4th round, the Pittsburgh Steelers selected Nick Herbig from the University of Wisconsin, and nobody was excited. But let me ask you this. And if you say you're excited, you're like the million people that went to Woodstock when only 100,000 were actually at Max Yasgur's farm in 1969. So I wasn't excited about Herbig. I'm thinking, this could be cool, but yeah, I wasn't excited. But come training camp, everybody got excited. And then the perception changed. So if there's a guy that you're not excited about because there's different people that know, they don't know what's inside a man's heart. They don't know what kind of motor they have. They don't know how they go to sleep at night and saying, oh my God, I just got a chance and it's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to go. They don't know what's inside Mr. Wilson's heart that just said, I'm going to rip people's heads off. They know now because he's saying it, but those guys are getting a chance. You know how you feel when you got that first job out of college, that first job out of high school, or whatever, that first job out of the military, whatever it is, you know that you have something to prove. And these guys but we didn't have people on the air, people on Twitter, people on social media saying, oh, this guy's not good enough for this job. Well, you know what? They have people saying it and they don't care because they're going to go and they are going to have their hair on fire and play their hearts out. So you can't measure what's inside a man's heart. And we're going to be able to measure that so much more after you see what they do in shorts, then in pads, and then in real games. So it's really exciting. So a guy, if you can't get excited about Mason McCormick or you don't know anything about Ryan Watts, well, guess what? They know who they are. And we're going to find out who they are really soon because, again, they know who they are.
All right, Dave, final thoughts.
Yeah, I do know people that were excited about Herbig because I knew the name because people talked about him before the draft, that maybe even in the 3rd round. I thought it was great because they got him in the 4th. And that's the same kind of thing that they did here. But man, I shouldn't say too much because I think I've used up all my words for the weekend. But if you weren't a part of the live stream was a whole lot of fun. It was basically our SCN crew, what we had just done off camera before, but with you all this time.
In a schedule.
And I what's that?
And a schedule.
And a schedule. And I loved it. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed being able to do that and get some insight. I hope you all aren't tired of hearing my voice. If you listen to all the breaking news podcasts, tried to keep them a little bit shorter than the rest of these shows. But man, this is an exciting time. This is really wrapping up what forming this team. But we also got some other things questions to ask, or maybe potential answers that we're going to get later. I think we're ready for some Steelers free agent moves here coming up. I would even say within the next week that I think that the Steelers are going to shore up, because you got to a point the Steelers are making great picks at these places, and you're like, oh, well, what about this position? Well, now that's a position that you can handle still in what's left in free agency. And there are several positions out there with a lot left in free agency. So continue to tune in here at Steel Curd Network. I'm not going to be shocked if before you know it, Jeff's back with more sourced information about some stuff going on. There could still be an issue where, like you said, we're going to get undrafted free agents here, probably later today, tomorrow. It all depends on when they announce those, and it's just going to keep rolling. But this is a big moment of the league year, that now that this is done, we're going to get the schedule coming out in the next couple weeks. The Steelers are going to be doing OTAs. We'll get those down 6 weeks there through the month of June and into training camp. But before you know it, it's going to be back at Latrobe and really moving forward towards this 2024 season. I can't wait for that.
Absolutely. I'm sure I'll get a phone call from the source tomorrow when I'm on the golf course or something, relaxing after a crazy weekend. And they'll be like, okay, here we go again. So nonetheless, make sure you stay tuned to Steel Curtain Network for all the latest and greatest. Gentlemen, Bryan, Dave, thank you for your work. You all did a lot of great work for both Steel Curtain Network and Fans First Sports Network this weekend. I do thank you all very much for that. And that's it. That's a wrap on the 2024 NFL Draft. Steelers get 7 new players, and now is when we start to digest all that and break it all down. Be on the lookout for the homies live later on this evening here on our YouTube channel. Should be a lot of fun. You'll hear that on the audio side tomorrow morning. In the meantime, folks, take it easy. We'll see you next time.